Well, let's get started then. I appreciate you all being here. As you know, I'm Lona Dallessandro. I'm the District 3 City Council member. I'm joined here tonight by Chief Seal, who's going to be my the purveyor of questions for us tonight as we get started. Appreciate his attendance. Appreciate all the staff members who are here who are helping us do these things. It is being recorded, so I will do my very best to avoid any explicatives. Hopefully, Ben, you can bleep them out if I need you to. But I'm generally a pretty loose, kind of conversational type person, and if you feel the need to ask a follow-up question or anything like that, I'm more than happy to take those. So don't worry about that. Okay, so what we're going to go through today. Oh, and by the way, in case you didn't know, I'm a first-term council member. I was just elected in January, or elected in November, seated in January. So this is my first term in office. I'd never run for office before. I'm not a career politician of any kind. In my full-time job, I am a product manager for a legal startup that works on technology that helps people find pro bono, lawyers to help them with pro bono cases. So it's nice to be doing missional work both in my day job and also working with you fine folks on the council as well. All right, tonight's topic, we're going to go through a little bit of the strategic planning. For those of you who have heard it already, I apologize, but we want to make sure people understand the grounding that we're going with as a means by which to make strategic decisions over the next 5 years. We're going to talk about what's going on in terms of development here in District 3. There's a number of different items, some of which you may know about and some of which you may have questions about, so we'll go through those. Talk a little about the intersection at 98th and Normandale, since that might be on your mind considering how much activity there is right now. One of my favorite topics, our Parks Master Plan. There's some significant stuff happening in District 3 related to that I want to make sure you know about, including the things like Penn Lake restoration, the Girard parking lot, et cetera, and the Normandale Lake Park facility stuff that we've got going on. And then finally, a little bit on the budget. I'm sure you have questions about that. I know as a taxpayer here in Bloomington, I have questions about that. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about Expo as well. Hopefully I get that done in 20 minutes or so, because the vast majority of our time together should be me answering your questions. Okay. By the way, if you still have questions or something prompts a question and you're not, don't hesitate to get up and grab another card and throw it in the bucket here. You know, feel free to move around. I don't have any problem with you. I mean, maybe Seal does, but I don't have any problem with it. Are you okay with it, Uli? All right, perfect. All right, let's get going then. All right, so our strategic plan. Essentially, we want you to understand the mission that we've all come up with. And the cool thing about this program that was defined over the summertime was that it came from mostly residents, right? So there were groups of people over the course of a number of different areas, residents, business owners, city staff, right? Some of the council members like myself took part in a number of them. And the goal there was essentially to say, what do we as a community want to set as our objectives for how we make decisions as a community? Our strategic plan came up with our mission statement, which you probably see now on everything, right? To cultivate an enduring and remarkable community where people want to be. And those terms were chosen on purpose, right? The idea that enduring, remarkable, where people want to be, those are specific, right? We know that cultivating means that it takes all of us to work together on it. Enduring means that it's going to last, right? That it's not something that we just do for tomorrow, but we do it with an eye on what 10, 20, 50 years looks like. And where people want to be is an homage not just to living here, but also maybe working here or traveling here or visiting here, you know, and so we try to keep all of those things in mind. The next step in this process, I think, is for us to kind of go through, hear more about that, and use that then to kind of rebalance what it is as a city council we're going to focus on as part of that. So more to come on that over the course of how we move through the balance of the year. And of course, we're going to start in 2023 with an eye on this stuff as we set kind of our work plans for each of the departments within the city as well. All right. All right, here we go with a bunch of stuff that's happening in the district. I'm super excited about this. These are the district apartments. You may know where they are. They're down on 80th and a half Street, right near the Orange Line. They are open now. There's 248 rental units in there. 4 stories, as you can see by the relief here, underground parking. We did do tax increment financing support for this as part of the overall build out of that area, since the Orange Line, the Express Line, was going to go in there as well. And we did leverage some of the affordable housing ordinance actions to try to get affordable units in there. And before I go further, when I say affordable, that doesn't necessarily mean that people are in need of assistance because they have no money, right? What we're talking about in today's money is, an average family of 4, average median income is $118,000. So when I tell you that these apartments are at 50 of them or so are at 50% AMI, what we're basically saying is that somebody, a family that makes about $62,000 to $63,000 a year as a family, can afford to live there. So I want to ground you in that statistic. I know a lot of times people think affordable means, Section 8 or whatever, and that's not the case in many of these scenarios. So if you do have any additional questions about that, or you want to do some math, we can do that too. I don't know if any of you are here from Friendship Village, but if you are, fantastic. I had the pleasure of visiting there. It's a very cool part of the world. They've done a really nice job. It's open now, of course, and I think we did 93 units in these independent ones. There wasn't any financial assistance. These are market rate, but a great development to support our seniors being able to stay in the Bloomington area as they age in our community. Next we have the Amira Senior Apartments, another example. This is over on 5601 American Boulevard. If you're familiar with that, it's on the west side. And they are 133 rental units there. I think this is right across from, am I right? This is right across from Normandale, right? In that area? Yeah. Again, no city financial assistance. This is an example of us taking an old commercial building and using that land space to convert it to units where people can stay in the community. I believe, bless you. I do have cats, so if it's my fault, I apologize. This is the assisted living framework that's next to that former senior living thing I just showed you. This is 118 assisted units. These are the kinds of projections when you see these kinds of developments. You're looking at people who are maybe independent living for a while and then they move into assisted living so they can just go across the street here and everything like that. Again, former office building site. No assistance from the city to build these. These are market rate units. Okay, I should probably have told you guys to make this one last because we're probably going to have some conversations on this one. But this is you probably know this as the Penn Lake City Homes, 86th and Penn. You're probably wondering what was going to go on there anyway, so I'll give you a backdrop here. This is currently the plan. As you all know, over the summertime, the city was sued by the developer of this plot of land because they didn't believe that we had the right to deny them their right to build this particular plan. Unfortunately, the city lost, and so now the builder does have the right to build this plan on that site. I say unfortunately because I wasn't on council when it was passed, but it's been a cause of commotion and rightfully so in our community for a while. Right now, they're kind of on the clock, so no building permits have been pulled yet. The building plan that was approved through the court process is got a 2-year statute of limitations on it. So if they choose not to move forward, it will expire on its own in 2 years. But no permits have been pulled at this point, so we are not really sure what the developer's next steps are here. More questions on that if you have them. We can probably address that later. The Noble Apartments, these are the ones at 94th and Lyndale. This is the one that's going up at 82nd and Humboldt. So many of you know that there was an old office building there from the 50s or 60s that was torn down, and it's becoming a really cool apartment building now. I think they've done a really nice job here in terms of the setback on the building so that it doesn't encroach right up against the road that is there that separates kind of your residential areas and all. So they did a good job there. It's 149 units. They did use our opportunity housing ordinance to support that too. 14 of those units are also going to be affordable at AMIs of 50%. And I do believe, Jamie, tell me if I'm wrong, there's a couple of 3-bedroom units in this building set, right? Yeah, which is great, right? So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, it's great if you, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, but what if you have a larger family and need 3 or 4 bedrooms? And so, part of one of these, what we're looking at in terms of development right now is, can we get some of these larger family units also to be a part of some of our development here? On the commercial front, we have Walser Toyota. This is kind of cool in the sense that, one of the things that the city passed was the notion that going forward, we really don't want these large expanses of parking lots associated with our car dealerships. Giving them verticality and allowing more use of the land around there is better for the environment and better for the density and development of the city. And so the folks here have actually created essentially an area for displaying all of their cars and keeping all of their inventory that sits on probably about 1/5 of what it would have sat on if they had tried to expand it out across all of the area. And so once they're done with the moving over and putting the corporate office buildings on or units on top of that and everything, they'll tear down the old building, and that'll leave us opportunity for a different development potentially. Fire station number 4. You all are probably familiar with this. This is at 84th and France. I think it's the second of the 6 fire stations that we're going through renovation on right now, and this is a complete remodel, as you imagine. Part of our budget process includes, and we'll talk about this, the bond for development of this fire station. I don't know, Chief Seal, if there's anything in particular you want to talk about, but I know that we have to go through this process because our fire stations are aging. They're too small for the basically the cars and trucks that we use as part of our fire service today. And we can't, if we're shifting to full-time firefighters, we don't have any place for these folks to be and sleep and live and make food and that kind of thing. So did I get all that? That sounded good? Okay, great. Yeah, so really cool opportunity. I know that I've had some conversations with some of the residents around there. There's some learnings for us around the process of this, especially since unlike Fire Station 3, this one was done right smack in the middle of a residential area, and there was probably some learnings we should have thought about as it relates to dust and noise and landscaping and the way that it encroaches on the environment. So before we get to 5 or 6, we have to think through these things and take some learnings from this. So I know that I've already talked with Jamie and with Chief Seal, and I imagine we'll get to the developers on that front as we go forward and think about those things in a little bit more detail. The Seagate expansion, another commercial thing. This is on the other side of 494, if you're familiar with where Seagate is. Very cool opportunity for them to expand their property. Great for us from both a commercial tax perspective and an employee base perspective. They also agreed to do some connections with the trails that are near there that connect kind of the 9 Mile Creek area and all. So they're building some more sidewalks and other things like that as part of this and also really just a great idea here. We want them to stay. We want them to continue to be, tech is an important industry for us, and we want them to stay and be happy, and so we're excited about this expansion. Top Line Credit Union. They are going in right on the south side of Lyndale and American Boulevard. I think they're actually looking at an addition that's going to be 2 stories. It's been vacant for a long time, but we had to do a little bit of work to move it from industrial to commercial in the zoning rules there, but it's part of that, that Lyndale transitional program that we have in place right now. So we could make that happen, and they'll be in there. I don't know exactly. Do you know late 2023, something like that? I think. We didn't provide them any assistance on this either. The commercial folks just decided to put it there. I think it's a good spot. I mean, U.S. Bank's right around the corner, and it gets a lot of foot traffic, so that's good. And probably my favorite one to tell you about today, did everybody know that Obelis is expanding? Did everybody know that they're taking out the 90th and Penn gas station to do it? Yes, I know, it's so exciting, right? Yeah, this is like just a really fun project, and I'm glad we landed on this one. The folks there have been wanting to do this for a while. We're going to help them a little bit. The city's going to do a little bit of TIF work to help them get rid of the gas station components and things like that, because that's kind of a challenge to developing that area. And then once that's complete, they're going to expand it. I think they're doing, if I'm reading my notes here correctly, outdoor seating area. I think we've got to get the approval process through, but once they do that, I think we're late 2023, early 2024 that this will be up and running. So not too far away now. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I mean, I like Obelis anyway, and this means that we'll all get to go. And so I have asked our community development director to make sure that she puts on camera for the whole world to see the demolition of that gas station. So I think maybe we should show up and have a party, right? Absolutely. All right. The last thing then we're going to talk about in terms of kind of street or pavement development is 98th and Normandale. There was a really interesting traffic study done here. We know we have the biggest problem that we had was people trying to get up to 45 miles an hour as they were coming around that corner on the ingress, I guess it is. And so, a lot of the work that was done here was to really make that protected turns. So you didn't have situations where people were barreling down Normandale Avenue at 45, 50 miles an hour and people trying to merge in there. It also hopefully protects a little bit of the backup that happens because you'll have a protected turn that allows you to actually move through the parking or the intersection as opposed to waiting for and everybody's subjective opinion about when the right time is to go, right? So more on that coming up. I think it's in its third phase right now. All right, let's talk about Parks Master Plan. The Parks Master Plan is a really important part of what we're working on from a strategic perspective. If you saw any of the council information over the last couple of months, you've seen us get some survey results that tell us, once again, that natural resources management and protection of our parks is a really, really important aspect of what we do here in Bloomington. I believe we have 97 parks. A third of the city is dedicated to public, green space in one way or another. And so it's just part of the city's, identity. And working through this Parks Master Plan allows us to move in a couple of different areas at the same time. One, it helps us with our facilities at the parks. So, for example, and I'll talk about this when we get to Bryant, not every park has restroom facilities. Not every park has accessible recreation facilities. Not every park has, the right kind of spaces for gathering, like picnic tables and other things like that. And so we're looking at all those assets. We're also looking at assets related to what people are doing in those parks because, there are activities that we support today that have become less of a priority for the residents here who use the space, and there are ones that are going up. So think about things like pickleball, which is obviously on an upward trajectory in terms of its popularity. The fastest growing sport in high school right now is mountain biking. And so our Kennedy and Jefferson high schools have mountain biking teams today. So, thinking about those things, whereas, less people play softball than they used to, for example. Or, there's some questions about whether pickleball and tennis can be in the same place or they have to be separate or, nighttime playing versus daytime playing. All of these things have to be considered, and they're kind of on a park-by-park basis based on what's happening in the community around them. So as we go through here, there are 9 parks right now being looked at. You may have participated in one of the listening sessions that they had at one of the parks. If you were at Tret Bar, or you were at Sunrise, or you were at Bryant Park, which is my home park, the inputs there have been crucial to us understanding what's going to happen next. And speaking of that, How many of you, I feel like I saw at least a couple of you there. Was anybody in the room there on the 10th of September at Penn Lake when we did a conversation with the community around the water quality there? At least nice to see you. Yeah, the importance of that is, it is an important feature to the central part of Bloomington. It is, going through, it's got a lot of challenges because it acts as a major container for a lot of the runoff off our impervious surfaces. And so if we can do the right things to control not only the stormwater input and the quality of that, but also the ecosystem management around it, so that we don't have algal blooms and we don't have problems with the oxygenation of the water and other things like that, we can make that place a much more vibrant area, for all the things that we might want to do there, like fishing, for example, which I wouldn't do today, although I know people do, but we'd want to make that something that everybody feels really comfortable doing. Okay, this might have been controversial for you. I don't know if it was or not. I've been over there a couple of times since this project has been completed, and people seem really happy with the outcome. We did pave the Girard Lake parking lot area. It's a small footprint. And it was buffered by native plantings as we finished it up. Not having it paved created a couple of challenges. It created unevenness in the surface, which was hazardous, especially in the wintertime. It made it impossible really to plow in the wintertime, which meant it rendered things inaccessible, especially for people with mobility issues. We wanted to do the right thing. Now, I'll tell you, I'm not a huge fan of taking pervious areas and natural spaces and paving them. Like, I hope we don't continue to do that all the time. But there are times when it's the most appropriate thing to do. And in this particular case, most people I've talked to, even people who bike over there, have said, yeah, this is a big improvement over what it was before. So certainly your comments are welcome on that front too. Then there was also some Normandale Lake Park facility. We work oftentimes with the Three Rivers folks here. A good example of a facility that needed to be updated, accessible bathrooms, making sure that we have good water quality there, good parking area and everything there. I believe, let me just check my notes, I think it's underway. I think they're going to be done before winter truly hits. Not first winter, but second winter, sometime in November. So if you get a chance to check that out, let us know what you think about it. All right, on to the budget. How many of you watched or participated in any of the budget commentary that we've had so far today as a city? Okay, so I will do my best to answer any questions I can think that other people have asked as part of the conversation. So our 2023 budget is right now sitting at $77 million. Do I have that right? 75, 77? I think, which is about a 10.5% levy increase over last year. And that's a big number. And none of us on council, because we're all also homeowners and residents here, want to pay that either. So I just want to be upfront with you about that. Right now, this is the distribution of that tax increase. And the important thing to note here is that we're really focused on public safety in this budget. There are two areas of public safety that are important.
Can you clarify? You said this is the distribution of the increase.
Yes, that's correct. The distribution of the proposed tax levy increase. So 65% of the total increase goes to fire and police. That's right.
Okay, I thought it was a total of what the entire budget was, as opposed to just the increase.
No, but we can clarify that. I'll have Jamie clarify that for us if you can. Is this representative of the same pie chart essentially for the budget as a whole? It's not.
No, so this is just talking about what the increase from 22 to 23 will be.
Right.
And that's the percentage, so
65, yeah.
65% is for police and fire.
Yep, yeah.
No, but what would it be, what's the base of that 65%? I mean, if we were not looking at the increase, but we were looking at the base, would our police and fire be 65%?
If I remember correctly, and forgive me if I don't think I have this right, but I think the total number, if you take fire, police, public works, and parks, that in and of itself is like 85%, but I can't break down for you in there off the top of my head, but maybe we can pull that up and get that back to you guys. So I'll answer that question. I understand the question you're asking. You're saying, okay, we're gonna go from, basically 70, I'm not gonna be able to do the math right, but if we take, yeah, I mean, if he can look it up right now, great. If not, we'll make sure we get it out to everybody, and I'll make a public comment. Pardon me?
How would you get it out to all of us from here?
I can certainly, from here?
Yeah, how would that work?
I'm very happy
Back
to,
to us, how would you get back to us?
I am very happy to, number one, make a post on my own Facebook page, which you all can follow. I'd be very happy to make a public comment about it at the next meeting, which is Monday. So we'll make sure that we get that information out to you folks. And if you have, if you want to eat.
You should know that. You should know exactly what that number is.
I appreciate that, but this is not Jamie's meeting, this is mine, and you get to ask me
This
questions.
is my meeting.
Okay,
This is our meeting. This isn't,
Sir,
Yeah.
you're being disruptive.
He's asking a good question.
I'm asking a good question, but this is our meeting. It's not your meeting.
Well, I'm the one that's here to answer your questions. Jamie's not,
You're not answering my question. and I'm-
because I don't know the answer to it, Kevin, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I will have to get back to you. And if he wasn't here, you wouldn't get the answer. He's not here
He's
because,
here, and I should expect that he'd be here. And what's the answer?
we'll do our best to get the answer before the end of the thing, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question about that makeup beforehand? Because I want to answer it and answer it effectively for everyone. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what the budget includes. The budget includes a major upgrade for our fire stations. I'm out of order here, I apologize. This is the number that basically you should look at if you're looking at how it affects you personally, all right? Although I don't know that if every one of you know what the median home value is in the city right now. So I did some math for you based on a number of different things just to make sure that you had a context that might be more relevant to you. So if you take $11.49 around the median value home, $11.49 would be if your home was worth today through your property taxes, you get an assessment of your home value, $355,900. Okay, so you'd pay $11.49 more per month if the budget holds at 10.5%, which, I'm not looking forward to voting for that. That's what it would be. If you have a $250,000 valued home, that number is $8 a month. Okay? And if you have a $400,000 median value home, $12.80. So I don't know if that makes it a little easier for you to understand. $300,000 would be $9.69. If you happen to have a $450,000 value home, it'd be $14.40. So you kind of get the way the math works. Yeah.
I don't understand the taxing procedures. Now, last year, they said they gave us a 2.75% levy
Correct.
or whatever.
That's right.
Our home went up, the taxes on it went up by 7 point something.
Right, yes. So that was because the property value of your house went up as part of the assessment.
It goes up to 11.5% levy this year.
10.5 is the maximum.
Well, with that new loan thing for Artistry,
Nope, not going to change anything. We already passed an ordinance that said we cannot raise taxes more than 10.5% this coming year. It'll never be higher than that. No matter what we do in the budget, we're not able to tax you more than 10.5%. Yeah.
but at 10.5%.
Yep.
What's my taxes going to go up by?
What is the current value of your house?
I think it's 350 or 330,000.
Okay, so at 300,000, we could do the math and come up with a middle ground here, but $9.69 would be what you'd pay per month additional if you had a $300,000 home, and $11.49 would be what you'd pay if you had a home valued at $355,000. So my guess is that based on what you've told me, it's going to be somewhere between $960 and $1150. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
Okay.
but what I'm wondering is, how come it went up 7 point
Yeah.
so percent
Yep.
last year?
Yep, I can explain that to you, but let's do this. Let me get through here, and then maybe I'll do a specific example with your numbers.
Right.
Okay, yeah, you got it, absolutely. It's a good question, and I know it's confusing, because there's like lots of factors that go into your property taxes, right? We are one of them. You have school taxes, you have, Hennepin County tax, you have the watershed district taxes, all of those things. Plus you have the increase or decrease to the value of your home year over year, and it can get really confusing. So I completely understand why it's a challenge.
So
Right.
Yeah, Kevin.
if my property taxes, or the value of my property goes up, why do you think that you should be able to have just a set increase as far as for the additional taxes that I should pay, just because the value of my property goes up? Why is that your money?
No, I'm not, these things are not related to each other.
If the property stayed at the same thing and we were talking about an increase,
Yes.
that might make a little bit of sense. But if you're saying, hey, the value of my property goes up, and then you take the increase from there.
That is not how it works.
That is how it works.
It does not.
Yes,
If
it is.
if your property tax, the value of your property went down year over year, we would still be talking about a 10.5% levy right now. They're not related to each other at all.
They are related to each other. The 10.5% levy is based on my new property tax value.
No, it's not. It doesn't have anything,
Based on my old property tax value.
I'm not basing it on your value at all.
Am I correct in that?
No, you're not correct.
I'm not basing it on, the city does not look at each one of your individual property values and decide what to assess you. That's not how it works. This number is the same for every person who has a residential property in the city of Bloomington, regardless of their property value. So the people who have $1 million homes pay 10.5% more than last year. The people who have $175,000 homes pay the same. Now, if your property assessment, your market value went up 50% versus somebody's that only went up 20%, yeah, the net total that you're spending is more, right? But that's not because the 10.5% levy. That has everything to do with the market value of your home. We expect, I believe, to see the market for homes in Bloomington to actually slow. Why? Because of the Fed raising the interest rates, right? So when we had interest rates sitting at 2.5%, 3%, people were buying our homes like hotcakes. The average number of days that it took to sell a house was like 4 days. We're not going to see that going into next year, most likely because interest rates are no longer 2.5% or 3%. They're more like 5 or 6% now. Yes.
That you're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Okay, Kevin, I'm not.
No, if my value of my house went up, I'm paying more based on my new value.
That is correct.
Yep, that is.
For every tax that you're assessed on, not because the city's doing anything special. It's because you'll pay more in Hennepin County tax, you'll pay more in school tax, you'll pay more in watershed tax, you'll pay more in city tax. That has nothing to do.
I'm not happy about any of those taxes.
Oh, I understand.
My point is, if the value of my property, you're talking about, okay, it might level now. Well, then we might be talking about the same 10.5% if we're right here. But if my property went up 20%, you're taking 10.5% from that. And you guys have to mind your store better.
We are not, okay, so I'm going to try this one more time. And then I'm going to move on because I care that you understand why we're doing this. Okay?
What's a tax levy is too high, that our levy should be about 3%.
I understand what you're saying.
I mean, that's the clue.
Do you believe that a tax levy is for just like regular cost of living?
We have so much waste in the city of Lona.
Well, we can talk about that. That's not what this presentation is about.
That's a tax.
Well, let's have that conversation. Let's have that conversation. If you add, very happy to actually. So let's have this conversation. 10.5%. If you take out the and I assume, okay, it's not. Let me go back.
There's some good money.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Let me go back to this guy. We'll talk about the Expo, no problem. We'll talk about the Expo in a minute. Okay, so who here understands that police and fire are our investments this year? Because let me tell you this, of the 10.5%, the levy that we're talking about, 8% of that levy goes to fire and police. If we were not making those investments, we would be right at where you're talking about, sir, 2.5%. Does everybody understand that? So hands of people who do not want us to invest in fire and police. So 3 of you out of everybody else in the room. That sounds about right. Fire and police are our number one concern in this community right now. People want to know that we have a handle on public safety. There are 2 things that are happening right now. I'm going to talk about fire first, and then I'll talk about police. With fire, we have a problem in our fire department in that we are the largest paid on-call fire department in the state of Minnesota. Okay? A paid on-call fire department, as amazing as they are, is not sustainable for a community of our size. Seeley will tell you, I'm not saying anything he wouldn't say himself, we struggle to make our SLAs when it comes to fire response. SLA stands for service level agreement, there you go. And what that means is if Seeley puts in front of us that we should be able to respond to a fire in 7 minutes, and we cannot meet that, that's bad for you as a homeowner whose house is on fire, right? Likewise, if we are able to do that, but we're only running 1 person on that truck or 2 people on that truck, we may be meeting our SLA from a minutes perspective, but we're not providing the high quality of service that you're looking for, okay? So we're gonna switch to a mostly full-time fire department for the city of Bloomington. That's what part of this investment is. In order to do that, we also need to upgrade our fire department buildings, our fire stations, because we can't house the people that are a part of a full-time fire department without a place for them to lay their heads, without a place for them to cook their meals, without a place for them to have all of the equipment, including the right fire trucks in the right places at the right time for them to do their jobs. Okay? 4% of this, 4% of the total 10.5% for fire. Now,
Does the city not have or receive a grant to hire full-time?
yeah, so let's talk about the SAFER grant. I'm sure there's a question in there about that. The SAFER grant actually kind of allows us to accelerate this a little bit. So what it's basically doing is saying those 6 firefighters that we were gonna hire, we're gonna be able to pay for 6 for 3 years. So the SAFER grant is only a 3-year grant, and it does allow us to bring those firefighters on and pay their salaries and benefits and everything for 3 years. Now, that's cool, except that when we don't get the SAFER grant again, we don't want to be left without being able to keep those firefighters on if the whole point is to increase our full-time fire department. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? All right, great.
So the 10.5% cannot be reduced because we got a grant, you're just gonna go ahead?
No, that decision hasn't been made yet. So we still working through those things. And like I said, I'm not interested in voting, I'll say this right now, I'm not interested in voting for a 10.5% levy. I'll just tell you that right now. Okay, so my hope is that we're making it lower. I don't think we're gonna get to 3%, sir, but, but you understand. Okay, yes, yes.
The allocation of taxes
Yeah.
to that question, 48% of our budget is for police and fire, 27% is for public works.
Okay, so the answer to your question, Kevin, just so everybody can hear it, on budget, so 65% for police and fire in the increase, 48% is what it sits at now. So the expectation would be that it will go up slightly in the 2023 year.
That's not slightly. That's where we have to, we just have to mind our store.
I understand
That's not slightly. And when we talk about 10% increases, that's not slightly.
I agree.
Have you guys been to the grocery store? Have you filled up your gas tank? I'm sorry, but this is, it's.
So I'll repeat myself one more time, okay? I understand that a 10.5% levy is high. I live here too. I buy groceries here. I drive my car here. I'm a human being, people, right? I mean, I live here and I understand the pain that you're in. I do. I don't make a ton of money myself. I'm not sitting up on high in some ivory tower. So I empathize with the position that you're in. And I've already said, and I'll say it one more time, I am not voting for a 10.5% increase, okay? So you have my word on that. All right, let's just, we can talk about police if you want to. We're gonna add 2 more police officers to the rolls. We're below our rolls as it is. I actually think this is a good idea, and I know there's lots of people who would question that about me, but let me explain to you my position on this. I have been, I made it my point when I first got on council to do ride-alongs every month for the first year that I've been on council, so I've been on 9 of them already. I do that on purpose. I didn't know anything about being a police officer when I got here, and considering it's the single largest line item in our budget, I felt the need to understand the job, okay? Whether you like it or not, I haven't been in the front or back of a police car before this, and I guess that's probably a good thing. You know, I've gone from literally, accident to overdose to, major medical for, an elderly person to a theft to, stolen license plate, like one right after the other in being with these police officers. They get no break. They get no break because there aren't enough people to do the work. And so they spend an extra amount of overtime. They spend 12-hour shifts, things like that. I don't think that's good for the health of our police officers. And I personally believe that better mental and physical health for our police officers is actually one of the best ways to make sure that we don't have police officers who, in a stressful environment, might make an unfortunate decision. And so I think it's actually better for everyone if we have more police officers, less overtime, more opportunities for them to care for their mental health and physical health. And if that means adding a couple more to the rolls, I think that that's okay. That's kind of my philosophy on it. If you disagree with that, I'm really happy to talk to you about it. But I don't think it's, I think it's a long-term way of looking at actually improving, the relationship we have with our police officers. And by the way, I have had the best time. If you've never done a ride-along, I recommend it. If you don't know anything about the job, go see what happens. It has changed my mind. I've also had the chance to talk with police officers, and I've had them change their mind a little bit based on conversations that I've had with them too, and so it's a really wonderful way to get to know them. Okay, I'm gonna go to Expo because we all wanna talk about it, except for some people. All right. So, the first thing I wanna say is Bloomington didn't decide to bring an Expo and then went and got all of Minnesota's leadership and all of the United States' leadership and all of the BIE to come here, right? It actually happened the opposite way, right? Minnesota has been at the state level and with the support of the Secretary of State been hoping to have an Expo in the United States for a long time. And I haven't been on council all this long, but I know from being a resident here and all, you can go back and talk about this back in 2017 and even further back than that. So the Bloomington being the host city in the United States for the Expo is, whether you think it's a good thing or not a good thing, it's mostly a function of the way that the process works for how these things become what they are. If you think about what we have to offer, the location and its proximity to a major airport, the location and its proximity to the medical alley, if you will, between Duluth and Rochester, right, that we have, which is part of the overall premise for the Expo. Healthy people, healthy planet, which is our motto for our bid. You can understand why we would be on the map. The other amenities we have, the number of hotels and restaurants and the spaces, the fact that we've already shown that we can handle, Mall of America size traffic plus a Super Bowl and a Final Four and all these kinds of things. It made sense for the United States to go into this opportunity with a very, very strong bid, and among all the places we could choose in the United States, it's one of the best ones, and that's how we ended up here. Now, I will tell you right now, so the folks at the BIE were here in early October, 2 weeks ago or last week, I can't remember. They've done tours of all of the 5 cities that are up for this bid. It includes places in Serbia, Argentina, Spain, and Thailand, in addition to us. We won't know if we are chosen for this until June of 2023. And if it does happen, May to August of 2027 would be the time. We would be done about the 15th or so of August, so as not to interfere with the Minnesota State Fair. The only money that has currently been spent by Bloomington as a city in support of this has been our 2 ex officio board members. The mayor has a position and the city manager has a position right now, as you know, that's Tim and Jamie. They have done travel. We've also taken contingents of folks to travel. The majority of that money actually came from the South Loop Development Fund, which is where this would be happening over by Mall of America. And right now there is no further commitment in any dollars by the city for this at the time. Yes, Kevin?
That's not true. Our housing and redevelopment dollars from there have been moved to our Port Authority. The additional dollars that we had a person that I can't remember the gentleman's name. He's a sharp guy. All of a sudden, he sits on the. He's an employee of the people that'll be doing a lot of the construction and the development or whatever of this project. We've rejiggered our dollars towards this. I mean, we can talk about.
So let me, Kevin. Neither one of those things is accurate. I understand where you. No, the reasons for them are not accurate. I understand why you're putting them together, but it's not true. So the Housing Redevelopment Authority and the Port Authority budgets have been consolidated into, basically bifurcated, so that the Housing and Redevelopment Authority focuses on building properties, renovating properties, helping folks with rental and homeowner assistance for units of 20 or less. The Port Authority, we didn't move the budget, Kevin. We didn't move the budget. I swear we didn't move the budget, okay? And the Port Authority is now working on commercial and residential development for 20 and above. The other thing that we did was make the Port Authority accessible citywide, which is a good thing for the city. It means that we can use the same benefits of a Port Authority to do financing and other things like that for projects all around the city. Now, whether you like development in the city or not, the truth is we've all watched the South Loop area get a lot of development, right? And that's in part for 2 reasons. One, because we have systems that are accessible to us through state code to the Port Authority that we as a city can't do. Okay, so by creating the Port Authority structure and giving us those levers that the city doesn't have, that the Port Authority by state law does have, we can actually do those things all around the city now. Okay?
All it's doing is taking from us our voice to put in the port. And where is our port? Where is Bloomington's port?
Okay, so a Port Authority.
Where is Bloomington's port?
I'm gonna go with MSP Airport. How about that?
That's not a port.
It is a port. It's not. Ports are not simply shipping ports. They're just not. You can look it up, and I promise you, it's
I've
not.
looked it up. I've looked at the other cities that do have a port authority, and you know what? They have a port.
They don't all have ports. I promise you. I promise you. We can talk about it offline, but I promise you, ports are lots of different kinds of ports. Some are shipping ports, some are airports, some are train depots. There are lots of different ways of looking at port. The purpose of a port is ingress and egress of goods and services. That's all it is. All right. So with that, I get to questions, although I feel like I've been managing questions pretty much along the way. I want to be sensitive to time. We're finishing up at 8 o'clock. So if there is a question that I kind of sort of answered already, I'm going to bypass that, not to get back to it, okay? But I want to make sure that the variety of questions that we may have are answered. So if you can do a little bit of that for me, that would be amazing, Chief.
Okay.
All right. Can you all hear Chief? Oh, thanks for that.
Yeah, why would we do that?
I'm going to answer them all. I'm trying
Relax.
to prioritize conversations we haven't had yet.
Relax. We don't have enough time to answer everything in here.
Why do you put that
My
one
guess.
aside?
Because I wanted to.
Well, why?
I don't need to explain that to you. If you're ready for this
Okay,
question,
That's exactly what's wrong with this format.
Exactly
What's wrong with this format.
I'm not hiding anything.
Then let's read that one.
No, I'm going to read the one I got in my hand right now. The City Council voted to ban flavored nicotine to save the kids. What is the difference between flavored nicotine and the flavored gummies now being sold that look like candy? And why have you not banned these from being sold? Should it not be all banned or no ban?
Okay, so I have a different opinion, candidly, about this topic than maybe some of my colleagues, to be honest with you. I will be candid and tell you that if I was on council when we did that ban, I would not have voted for it. And it has nothing to do with the very true health statistics that smoking and vaping is bad, and especially for kids in their developmental years. We know this, right? But I have the opinion that in my experience, the marketing was the problem and the enforcement was the problem, and I would have focused my efforts on that, not just done a ban. So that's just my personal take on it at the moment. I didn't vote on it, so I'm only, I'm speaking from the peanut gallery, if you will. Having said that, I understand that the THC gummies that people are referring to here also have a challenge in front of us. Now, according to the state regulation on them, there are some provisions in place around the kind of packaging they can use, where they can sell them, and all that kind of stuff. And we are looking at an ordinance here in Bloomington to tighten that up. So much like we have, tobacco sales today, behind the counter, 21 and over, ID required, packaging enforcement, and that kind of thing. The truth of the matter is, the state regulation happened so quickly and with so little guideposts for us that we have to kind of make them up on our own, right? And so I believe probably before the end of the year, we're going to see something, right, to react to, do you think?
I'm not sure by the end of the year.
I mean, for us, like personally.
Yeah, not sure.
Not sure. Okay. Yeah. So my guess, and this is just speculation, is that the very first thing that the state legislature does when it comes back in January is tighten up these regulations. And of course, we'll follow suit and go forward with it. But I think that if it's 21 and over, which is what it is in state statute anyway, we need to make sure that we have the enforcement in place here in the city to ensure that that's the case.
Okay, next one. During the September 19th council meeting, you voted to go ahead and approve the grant for Artistry. I believe you stated artists need to be paid, they don't get paid enough. However, it seems what Artistry was asking back on September 19th for a loan was greatly underestimated. Apparently they hadn't conducted a thorough enough forensics on the debts. Could you explain why artists need to be paid and why that's the city's responsibility? Many private companies and nonprofits sometimes will go into debt and declare bankruptcy, and their workers unfortunately don't get paid. Why should the city make an exception for Artistry, especially since they had no sound accounting controls?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate it. This is a really tough issue for me because I love the arts, and I do think that we underpay our artists. I just do. I have artists in my family. I have a performing artist on Broadway, and I have folks that work in the trade, and I would like to see more investment made in arts all over the country. I honestly believe that. So I'm a fan of the arts, and so from a purely like fangirl perspective, I want to see the arts succeed. Having said that, I also, have 30 years of executive level business experience and know a bad deal when I see one. And I am in a very uncomfortable position right now because I have people on both sides of this issue calling and talking to me daily about, please support the arts. Artistry has grown. It's our highest visibility, most regionally important arts organization in Bloomington. It brings people from all over the Twin Cities to support our arts. We get a lot of benefit from that, both from shops and restaurants and other things that happen, as well as the downflow of looking like an important arts destination, here in the area. And so, great. And then on the other side, people say, like, these people were really bad with their money, and it's not the city's job to give out a loan. And I agree with that completely. We are not a bank, and we shouldn't be giving out loans. So the reason I voted for the grant was twofold. The first one being because understanding that people needed to pay their debts, and that we had both, people in our community who were strapped and not able to be paid because of this, and we had a benefit to the community by having these shows put on. I felt that it was important to at least clear the deck there. The other reason is because, yes, to the point of the individual, the loan at the time was $350,000, and now it's $750,000, and that's very different. So more to come on that, but that's the reason.
Who prosecutes criminals in Bloomington? Chief Booker seems rightfully angry that they are being released.
Okay. So I am not an expert on the way that our judicial system works, but criminal charges are largely put through Hennepin County. So basically, what we do is we book them and we ship them to county, and then county makes a charging decision based on that. And there are some nuances to that if Chief Hodges was here, he could be more helpful to, the things like misdemeanors versus gross misdemeanors versus felonies, right? And they go through different processes. But we do not do criminal prosecution in the city, except
Misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor.
Yeah, okay, so that's what the line is. Okay, great. So misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors for us, felonies down to Hennepin County.
Why are we concentrating on low-income housing? ? Why are we looking like Minneapolis more and more all the time?
So I can't answer the question about why we look like Minneapolis, because I don't think we do. But when it comes to focusing on low-income housing, again, I want to just be clear about what I said earlier. Low-income housing and affordable housing have different connotations. Okay, when you talk about the median income of a family of four in the city of Bloomington at $118,000, and we're talking about affordable housing at 50% of that number, we're talking about $62,000 as a family of four. Now, a family of four living on $62,000 shouldn't pay more than 30% or so of their income to rent. Like I was taught that when I was a kid. Don't go for a rental situation. Don't go into a mortgage that costs you more than 25 or 30% of your take-home pay. So we're trying to help people maintain that so that the other 60-70% of their income can be focused on living and investing in our community, paying for goods and services, et cetera, which of course they're all higher too, per our earlier conversation about gas and groceries. Yeah, Ken.
There's no such thing as affordable housing when we keep on increasing property taxes at the rate that we do.
So affordable housing is, in this particular context, is a function of the way that we do rentals. We don't do a lot of condo or townhome building here, and there's a lot of reasons for why we don't do that. I would love to see us do more of that, because then we would have more property owners in the city when we're building out these multi-unit things, but we have some real severe structural imbalances.
To go up, there's no such thing as affordable, because it has to be met. So whoever that property owner is, who's ever going to pass along their costs, when we keep this continuing to rise, affordable housing just becomes more and more of a misnomer.
I understand what you're saying. What I would change that to say something different. I would say that it is not okay. I agree with you completely. I think this is what you're saying, that the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. And so the numbers are irrelevant. The amount nope. Just let me finish, Kevin.
When you go to the gas station too, they're very relevant when you have to write out your check to whoever you're writing it out to.
I understand that. I do. And what I'm saying is, if How many of you worked for minimum wage when you were a kid? Yeah, we all did, right? Shout out some numbers. For me, my first job, $3.25 an hour. $1. $1 an hour? $2. $2 for you too? Okay. Right now, minimum wage, federally is $7.25. Could you live on $7.25? By the way, the number, if we go to $15, which I know you've heard a lot of people talk about $15 minimum wage, if you've done the math, you know that the equivalent of $15 an hour for a normal 40-hour work week is $30,000 a year, which is half the number I just told you is half the median income in the city of Bloomington. So what I'm trying to get to...
We never get to affordable housing if our electeds can't mind their store.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate the commentary. Yes, sir.
Well, my comment would be that I believe minimum wage largely in the metro area. Because I think Hennepin County is $20 an hour. I believe a number of other government entities are $15 an hour.
Yeah, 15, right.
Forced a large number, in order to get a city employee.
Right.
It's quote unquote $15 an hour.
Agreed.
In the metropolitan area.
Yeah, but if you do the math...
Jobs are
No, you're absolutely right.
around 17 to 20.
You're absolutely right. So, but do the math is what I'm trying to say. Like if you were living on $15 an hour today, you would be bringing home, or you'd be grossing, $30,000 a year. You couldn't afford a home in Bloomington. You couldn't afford a home in Minneapolis. You couldn't afford a home.
If our electeds can't mind their store, we're not going to get any.
I understand what you're saying, Kevin. I do.
Lona.
Yeah.
Dorothy.
Huh.
But if you're making minimum wage, do you really have the desire to own?
No, which is why we're trying to do affordable housing in the rental market, is what I'm getting to. Affordable housing in the rental market is really important, because otherwise we wouldn't have people in our community that would do those minimum wage jobs. And we need them. If you want to go to a restaurant, you need them. If you want to go to a gas station and have somebody clerk for you, you need them. If you want to go to get your dry cleaning done, you need them. If you want to go to Target and pick up your groceries, you need them. And so that's my point. Where they cannot live in Blaine and drive to Target in Bloomington and work for $15 an hour and have enough money to do anything.
But maybe they're,
All we're trying to do is create opportunity, right?
probably just starting out,
Sure.
and they will make more.
That is not always true. I appreciate your vote of confidence. I love that for you. I can tell you that my mom at age 53 was working at McDonald's for $3.40 an hour, so it doesn't always work out that way. Next question.
Ready? What was the methodology of the poll conducted that showed a majority of Bloomington residents favored a sales tax? Question mark. The results seem hard to believe considering how inflation is impacting residents. Who did they poll within the city? Certain zip codes, demographics, etc. Question mark. Do you feel this is a valid poll and why? This last week during the council meeting, there was a discussion about why 2 recent national community surveys conducted showed significant differences in outcome.
Yeah, so I'm generally a big fan of polling in the sense that if it's done by an organization like the one that did this poll, they know what they're doing. They're statistically valid. They've been used all over the state of Minnesota. Our Bloomington public school system uses them as well. So I trust the methodology. The methodology itself was random sampling of 440, I think, residents in the city. I don't think that they explicitly went by demographics of any particular type that we gave them. And so it was truly a random sample. And that's how statistics oftentimes work. If you're trying to get to plus or minus 5%, you use 440 or so people. And I asked that question, if you're interested, if you go back to the council meeting where that actually went on. When we talked about it, I asked that question, like what's the reason for that number versus any other number? And the gentleman who was with the company gave an answer on that, so it's worth looking into. I do believe that circumstances, especially volatile circumstances like the up and down of our prices and other things like that do have some impact on, depending on the question, right? So if I asked you a question about gas last week versus this week, depending on whether you went to the gas pump or not and knew what the price was or not, you might answer a question differently, right? So I think there's some temporal nature to polling that you have to consider. So that would explain to me anyway why we'd have some variation. I guess that's what I'm saying.
This is more of a comment than a question.
Okay.
Lona, you did a great job. Thank you for having a town hall.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. We're not done yet, so hold your applause.
I'll grab another one. In a recent news article, it was noted that 2% of fire calls actually involved fire. Have we looked at or analyzed our response protocols to be as cost effective as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really interesting question. I've asked, when I first got onto council, one of the questions I asked was, is there somewhere between fire and police, is there room for like medical, right? And could we look at that? I'm not sure, number one, all of our firefighters are medically trained. It's part of their requirement, right? So I feel very confident that they can handle medical, calls. And we don't have an ambulance service here in the city of Bloomington. We have that farmed out to the folks at Alina who manage things regionally. So it would be really, I think, a pretty big investment for us to go to, we want some kind of an EMT service or something like that. It can be looked at, but it would require investment in doing that. So I don't know, Chief, if you had any thoughts on that, but you probably haven't looked at that in a while as a result, right?
We had a service evaluation as part of council's effort to have all our services in the city evaluated.
Yeah.
And the direction we're moving was a result in part of that study. So.
Okay, gotcha.
Next question.
Yeah.
Amendment to the energy inspection. If you put in a large improvement within a year, could you get that waived?
Oh, I don't think we've ever thought about that. It's a good idea. Put that one aside. We'll take it to the group. Bernadette would be very interested in that. So I understand why that would be valuable. My hope would be that if the inspection happened, that they would be like, yay, you. But I think it makes sense to get it on, maybe we can track it. I like that idea.
What can the city do to help the beggars on the street corners?
Okay. So I know that there was some question recently about whether or not we as a city changed an ordinance to allow panhandling or anything like that. That's not what happened. There was no change to any ordinance or anything like that. What happened was every once in a while, something goes to a court case or something goes through the legal system at the state level, and there's a clarification that's sent out about what is and is not protected speech. Okay, and so what happened was our attorney got the information from her people and presented it to the police folk so that they knew what the clarifications were. And here are the clarifications. The act of begging for money is considered protected speech. It's basically soliciting your goodwill. Okay, and that's protected speech under the First Amendment. Now, there are other things that can come with begging for money that can be considered illegal. So, for example, harassment, right, or loitering, or trespassing on property, those kinds of things. So, in conjunction with begging for money, if another thing happens that is a violation, then that person can be charged with a crime under that separate violation. But whether you like it or not, soliciting the goodwill of someone by begging for money is protected speech under the U.S. Constitution. I hope that answers the question. Now, regarding begging, generally speaking, they're coming here because they've been kicked out of somewhere else. They're going to go somewhere else when we kick them out of here. I mean, it's one of those transient problems that we have, again, related to affordability, but it doesn't get solved by the city without working together with all the other services and everything like that. But until then, pay attention. If they're harassing you, if they're coming up on your lawn unlawfully, if you don't want them there and you've told them to go away and they keep coming back, or if you're a small business owner and you've told them to go away, we can get them trespassed, in which case then we have legal rights to manage that better. Okay.
Next. Bloomington for decades had stable population of approximately 82,000. Today, 2021, the population is nearly 90,000. What are targets for 2030 and 2040, and what governmental body is defining this? And then in parentheses, Met Council with a question mark.
Okay. Yeah, so I know that Met Council we use Met Council data for a number of the forecasting that we do. We get that from the U.S. Census as well. If you go to the U.S. Census website, you can look at their 10-year plans, but then you can also look at like their one-year projections, and that basically informs what Met Council is using as well. So from what I recall, and I apologize, I didn't look this up in advance, I believe that we are going to go over 100,000 people by 2030 or 2035 in accordance with those, and I would suspect we'd add another 10,000 or so in the 10 years after that. So we are looking at probably about a 1,000 person a year increase in the city of Bloomington.
Ready?
Yeah.
World Trade Expo, the article in the Star and Tribune last weekend, was not in favor of Bloomington hosting. I quote, officials from the Bureau International were here and they were upfront that Expo 2027 would be a public-private partnership. Details were not provided, but the implication was clear. Taxpayers will be among those on the hook if Expo fails to meet attendance and revenue projections. Should the city be asking residents if they truly want this here? Question mark. And not just making their own decisions.
Okay. So again, like I said earlier, it's not really solely up to us. It is a function of our U.S. Department of State, our U.S. Department of Commerce, as well as Minnesota's leadership, both at the governor level and also at the U.S. Senate and Congress level, right? So fair question about whether or not we should be asking for it. I'm not sure that we get a choice. I'll be candid with you. All that having been said, I think it would be worth us thinking about this a little differently, okay? And by the way, there was a Star Tribune article right after that was very much in favor of it. So this is where we're at. We have people who like it and people who don't like it, and I get it, and I don't know what, depending on which way you feel about it, you're going to lean towards the things that reinforce your opinions. I get that. Here's my take on it. Public-private partnerships are really common. There is a separate 501c3 organization set up, right, to manage both the bid, and there'll be another one set up to manage the implementation of Expo should we win. Promise you, the public-private portion of this is going to be soliciting all of the major donors that you normally would think of, your Coca-Colas and your Pepsis and your Targets and your 3Ms and all these folks that are corporations who put money into these things for the purposes of location, advertising, placement, et cetera, right? That is a public-private partnership, by the way. That's what that, so when somebody in a very generic way says public-private partnerships, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's on the burden of all taxpayers. I'll also suggest that, sure, the U.S. Department of State will probably put money into this. So will the state of Minnesota. We have not committed to any funds ourselves as a city of Bloomington. Now, the more money they're able to raise, the less we have to even worry about. But I would also say that there's some enduring benefit to development of that location that will probably be part of our responsibility. So think about this. When we go in and somebody wants to develop something, we put the sewer pipe underneath it, right? We connect it to our sewers, we draw the water lines, we work with Xcel Energy to put the electrical in there and all that kind of stuff. That happens, and that happens in every development that we do in the city. The funding for that may be how that works, whether that's TIF financed or other things like that. But we do a lot of that work. Some of that's paid for by the commercial enterprise. Some of that is ours to put in. It endures after the fact. So even after the Expo is done, buildings that are there that are enduring, the city of Bloomington will be able to use. The infrastructure underneath there, the city of Bloomington will be able to leverage for other developments and things like that. So unfortunately, we're 4 years out and we haven't even won yet. So a lot of this stuff is still coming into focus.
Okay. According to a recent news article, the Afrique Center is moving ahead after the CEO is indicted in Feeding Our Future, question mark.
Okay.
Are the cities Are the city leaders at all concerned that this center may have been paid for fraudulent funds stolen from the taxpayers for feeding our future? Question mark. Is anyone from the city leadership investigating this? Question mark.
Okay. So I'll go backwards. No, nobody's investigating it because from our perspective, we have no visibility into the commercial funds of a commercial enterprise. You know, any of our commercial enterprises in the city may have CEOs that do bad things. If you recall, Best Buy went through something not that long ago, right? It's not like the city of Richfield also all of a sudden investigated all their finances or other things like that. So the city is not involved in the financing of that private enterprise. We have not committed any dollars, as I know, to that enterprise. Is that correct, Jamie? Right? You know, from our perspective, they have to deal with like ousting their CEO and whatever, but from what we've been told, it's an ongoing concern and they plan to open on time. And the only thing that we have done in support of that at all was to provide a definition around cultural campus, which is actually useful anywhere in the city. So anybody who wants to do that kind of mixed use now can build one of those in the city. And so that's just a code change that we did for the entire city. Yeah, Kevin.
I had my hand up on the World Expo thing. I just look at these projections, and whenever you're going, you know, 5 or 7 years out, that's a long ways, and it's hard for anybody to really get their hands around that. But when we started this, when we talked about things like the water park and helping with the parking area or whatever around the Mall of America, rates were at 3%. We weren't in this heavy time of inflation. We hadn't even started with COVID. And what's happened is there's no way any reasonable person can look at what the projections would be as far as for people that would come to an event like that, because they don't have the money to be able to do that. Why every single expense has to increase. The cost of the money, the cost of the construction, the cost of every single thing has gone,
Sure.
Every single metric has gone the wrong way.
Yep.
Yet we still think that we're, you know, oh, let's go. We're all hands on deck. It's going to be something that's just like the light rail transit to the west. We're going to be going, I guess this didn't quite work out the way that we thought.
So,
but it should be simple enough to understand. If it made sense to us 3 years ago, and we were trying to figure out every way to make that happen, well, every single metric has gone the wrong direction. Shouldn't we be bright enough to say, you know what, let's leave it to the people in Spain. Let's leave it to whoever. You know, things are good here. They keep on talking about this vacant land. You know, it's been vacant for 30 years, and it's not our best possible use. Well, maybe it's been vacant for 30 years for a good reason.
So I can't argue with some of your conjecture there in the sense that, you know, I agree with you that those numbers should be rerun often, right? They should be rerun with the notion of you know, the latest in projections around inflation, the latest in projections around population, the latest in projection around GDP. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I would have to think that the U.S. Department of Commerce knows how to do that. Well, okay. I appreciate that you don't think so, but I'm going to bet with them. And I don't mean that to be dismissive. I'm just saying that, like, we have to at some point trust that there are experts with our best interests in mind who are looking at these things. Now, if that is not the case, I'll raise my hand right next to yours and say, hey.
You won't. You're going to raise your hand to vote for it.
Okay. Well, you've already made so many decisions for me tonight. I don't know what, maybe you could come up here and finish this if you want to. That would be fine.
No, if I did, we wouldn't be looking at this monstrosity.
Well, that's fair. Go ahead.
Next question. Yeah. What's going on with Bryant Park, and when will it start?
Yeah, okay, so that's in the budget for 2024, I believe. It's a big deal. You all, hopefully, some of you provided input to that. I'm super excited about it because it's my home park. I live at 87th and Emerson, so it's the one I walk to every day. The intent of the development there is threefold. One is to stabilize and rejuvenate the natural spaces associated with the park. That is probably one of the most naturally occurring water basins that we have in Bloomington. When I got the chance to talk with Jack Distel about it, he wants to try to turn it into as close to what it was back in the 1940s before the development happened. So that's very cool. In addition to that, then there's a reimagining of the facilities that are there. So the questions about whether or not there still should be, 3 or 4 diamonds, tennis courts, maybe plus pickleball courts, that kind of thing. And then there's the infrastructure. It doesn't have a bathroom right now that's open and available both outside and inside. And so the maintenance building that if you know about it, that's there, is going to get redone. It'll also include some community spaces. And one of the cool things about that is the folks in co-ed are already thinking about how to use our police department to create some kind of after school, in park type, programming and things like that for youth in that area. I'm assuming we're going to do that in lots of different places in the community.
If the proposed sales tax doesn't cover the planned developments, buildings in parentheses,
Okay.
how does the city propose covering the costs?
Yeah, good question. The truth is, the way that the lost function works, right, local option sales tax, the way that works is that we get to do it over a course of, is it 20 years or 30 years, Jamie? Up to 20? Yeah, it's up to 20 years. So essentially, what we need to do is project that we can pay for what we're trying to pay for in that 20-year period. Now, if prices go down or we can accelerate or the expectations about the sales tax are higher than we anticipate, then we can do it in shorter amount, right? But the idea is that it's done that way. The truth is, you guys get to vote on that. So after we go to the state and we ask for permission to put a sales tax out there in the first place for each individual project, the City of Bloomington residents have to vote to it be okay for us to do that. So there are 4 of them. You get the chance to vote on each one of them individually. So if you only like 2 of them, you only have to vote for 2 of them. If you don't like them at all, you can vote no on them. And it's only if they pass that we would implement them in the first place.
I was looking, Mr. Seal, looking through all the questions. It's what I've always been disappointed with this format. I mean, pick one.
So Kevin, I would argue that anybody watching this will feel like you've been heard tonight.
No, but I tell you what, he should pick one and he should read it. And
Go
on to the next one and make him make one up if he wants to make one up. But this isn't what this format's about. He's got 4 of them in his hand. He grabbed one. He grabbed another,
Got 3 or 4 more here too.
We're
Got a
going
whole
to try to
stack
get
that
through
I've
them all.
read.
We're going to try to get through them, but every time
That's
you
what I'm
interrupt
doing.
me and ad hoc this thing, I can't do it.
That's what I'm doing. And you guys are managing to chew up the time that a lot of people wrote their questions down so they could be heard.
Pick one and read it.
I will read until she tells I'm done.
Well, then pick one and read it.
I have.
Not 4, 1.
He's just.
Give her one, let's go.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
What can I do
that's
for you, sir?
refreshing.
Yes, sir.
What?
That's the old news
One
and fire
second.
station. Let's do
Vote on
things,
that,
let's
on
be
those 4
forthright.
sites, this election?
No, it has to pass. Good question. It has to pass the legislature first, and so if it does, we would try to get it on the ballot for the 2023 election. Yep. Go ahead.
What's happening with the senior center?
Okay, so one of the programs that is part of the Bloomington sales tax thing that we just talked about is a reimagining of the Community Health and Wellness Center, right? That would take place on Creekside. So in case anybody's wondering, no more Valley View play lots, that's not happening, right? We're looking at how to renovate and revitalize Creekside Community Center. That would be where we would have both community center for seniors as well as other programming, and also the public health services would go into that building as well. I'll try to rapid fire some of these.
All right. What is the issue with the Bloomington Theater's deficit? And are they part of the Art Center upgrade?
No, is the long-term answer, or the short answer to that. They're not part of the upgrade. There's no funding for the Civic Plaza upgrade that we're asking for as part of the sales tax. There's no funding for Artistry or any other civic or a community arts organization embedded in that. That is simply a structural update to add a theater so that we can have a symphony and an art and a theater production happen at the same time, because right now we can't, right? So that's really what it's about. Is we have all kinds of conflicts between our Bloomington Symphony Orchestra and our Artistry productions or our other productions, because once you set up a theater thing, it's up for 6 weeks. You can't tear it down and up again and all that kind of stuff. So the goal is to expand it so we could do that kind of programming more regularly. Yes?
Isn't the symphony out at Masonic Hall?
They are now, yes.
Is that not a long-term?
I don't know. Jim, do you know anything about?
It's up to them.
Yeah, okay, it's up to them. They're probably out there because we don't have place for them here. So if we did build one, they would come, I would assume. Yeah. Did I answer? I did answer all that. Okay.
Taxes. I think you've addressed this, but my taxes went up by 7.9%
yes.
last year. What is going to happen
issue?
with the 10% or 11% this year? Is there any chance that percentage can be lowered?
Yes. So yes, like I said, I'm not voting for something that's 10.5%, so I'm working on lowering it along with the rest of the council. But why don't you and I sit after this is over and we can do the specific math, if that's okay with you. Would that be okay? All right, great. I'm happy to stay after class on that one. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Isn't this format a batch of nonsense?
Probably, yes. Hands of people who have liked it so far today? Yes. All right, people who are disappointed besides Kevin? Just you, Kevin, so I think we're okay. Go ahead.
It might be okay, but
Why?
I don't like it.
That's okay. I appreciate you.
Why can't we cut the organics recycled down to 1 time per month and cut the rate down 75%?
Okay, yeah, really good question. I know that this has been controversial for people. I understand that. I am a huge fan of organics recycling because I know it has a lot of benefits, both to from an environmental perspective where we don't burn that stuff instead, but I don't know if you are familiar with the fact that wet garbage is a lot more difficult to incinerate than dry garbage, and so it's actually not providing the benefit that it would if we only put dry garbage into the HERC. So there's a lot of work being done on this. All that to be said, much like all other city services, like your trash services, like your road, services, like all of those things, we spread the citywide services across the entire city to try to make the cost of it low for as low as possible for everyone. If you're not using organics recycling, I would prefer you try it. I would give it a go college try. I think you'd really appreciate the benefits there. Having said that, we have asked, and you can just look at this, it either came up last week, on Monday night or the Monday night before, we have asked the folks within Public Works to look at alternatives for the way that we pay for all of those services, and specifically, could we offer the option for people to go to an every other week pickup? And that would be for garbage as well as recycling and stuff like that. So I totally get it. I really do. I mean, I'm by myself right now. My wife lives in Mississippi right now. I'm the only person in my house. I generate maybe 1 bag of garbage every other week, right? Yeah, and I know so many of our seniors are like that. If they're by themselves in their home or it's just the 2 of them in a home, they're not generating the garbage they did when they were families of 5 and 6. I completely get this. This is a practical problem. I don't know if we can solve it, but we've asked for help. And so we're going to take a look. We're going to do some studies, and we're going to see what we can come up with.
There should be like some neighbor sharing.
Yeah.
Yes, that was one idea.
Your neighbor.
Absolutely.
Our neighbor and I, we put our stuff together.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
2-part question.
Let me just interject.
Yes.
I really appreciate you looking at that.
Yeah.
Because as a senior citizen living by myself, I bet I fill a trash can once a month.
Sure.
And
Yep.
I know we pay for everything, but it seems to me there's a way, and you have a lot of seniors living in Bloomington.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely understand it. It was an issue that came up, like, truly, while I was campaigning and door knocking with people. I mean, I can tell you, I can name off at least 6 people in my neighborhood who have this exact problem. So it's important to me, and I'm glad we're looking into it. I don't know what the solution will be, but I think we can do better than what we're doing right now, for sure.
Yes, to the public, I can tell you I'm gonna take care of it easy.
Adopt a neighbor.
We have 2 more questions and then we'll open the floor, but we're 3 minutes.
A little bit more.
Okay,
than 2.
okay, 3 more
Two-part
questions.
question. Why
Okay.
does the city need to do the inspection of people selling their house?
Yep.
And second part, why does the city manager want to increase the office staff so much? Let's cut salaries.
Okay, so I will take the first, yes, ma'am. Okay, I'll ask him again.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Just the second one, or you want them both?
I didn't hear the second.
Okay.
Price is in the,
Sorry. Why does the city manager want to increase the office staff so much? Let's cut salaries.
Okay, so I'll answer the second one first, and you'll have to remind me what the first one is again, just because I care about this a lot. So 2 things on salaries. The first thing to note is that we actually, if you look at 2016, the total number of employees, and last year when I did the math and I actually put something out about this, we actually are down employees over year. So I don't think we have more employees. I understand the question around salaries though, and truthfully, we are the 4th largest city in Minnesota. We are competing with very highly talented and capable people. They have lots of places they can go, and we need to be competitive in our salaries, candidly. Like, that's just the truth. Now, having said that, depending on how you do the math, you can argue whether we're overpaying or underpaying, but I'm in the commercial business today. I know what salaries are cost. I'm hiring right now for somebody to work for me. I know what the salaries are out there, and I know what people are willing to take a job for. And if you don't want the city to run as well as it does, which everybody has said it runs good. Like, I mean, when you think about public works, y'all love the water, you love the snow plowing, we do. We are a good city that way. Those people work for us, and they need to be paid, and they need to get services from the city like you would want if you were working today. So if you were working and you wanted paid medical leave, well then our city staff, it makes sense they would want it too. Or if you wanted to get paid, median, commensurate with what other people are being paid from a salary parity perspective, you would want that. You would want our people to have it too. And so I think we have to stop thinking about them as an entity and a line item and realize that they're people who are doing a job, and this is their career, and we want their career to be a positive experience. And if we do that, I think we can change a little bit of our concerns around, are we paying them too much? My opinion.
First part of that question
Yeah.
was, why does the city need to do the inspection of people
Yes,
selling the
okay.
house?
So I actually wasn't necessarily sure that this was a good idea or not. The city is doing inspections, they said, up front, because they believed that they could be more consistent. It could cost less, and they would find more hazards, which would make the housing stock in Bloomington of better quality. So that was the reasoning behind the decision. Now, we asked them to come back and give us data that suggests that's true or not true, and that just happened on Monday's meeting. So if you get the chance to look at Monday's meeting, you'll see the numbers. And the truth is, for the most part, that's exactly what happened. The number of inspections was higher. The number of hazards that were found and corrected was also higher, and the cost for the service was on a per person basis lower. In addition to that, they didn't get a lot of survey results, but the survey results that they did get were overwhelmingly positive in terms of the level of service that was provided by the employees. So I highly recommend you look at the presentation in the packet from Monday, or you watch the council portion of the meeting on that topic, and then if you have any questions, you can let me know.
2 more left here. Why did Hy-Vee pull out?
Okay.
We need another grocery store that does not bleed us dry.
Okay, Hy-Vee, I don't know why Hy-Vee pulled out, and the city doesn't really know. That was not a city decision. Kraus Anderson is the commercial property developer for that area, and so that deal would have been between Kraus Anderson and Hy-Vee, and we could all sit here and speculate on why that didn't go through, but I don't know the answer, and we will not know the answer, because again, commercial enterprises are private businesses, and we don't get involved in that stuff. So unfortunately, I don't know the answer, but I would love to have it there if it comes. I can tell you that, absolutely.
Last question. Have changes been made to the budget, and in parentheses, rate of pay for camp counselors, to account for problems with staff recruitment for the Summer Adventure Playgrounds program?
So is the first part of that, has it?
Have changes
Have
been
changes.
made to the budget?
Yeah, okay, so two things on that. There's, back at the spring of 2022, when I first got on council, Ann Ketchery from our Parks Department did come and ask us for some help, right? There were some problems with recruitment. We put in some bonuses to try to encourage people to come in, and we did raise the hourly minimum there. I believe that we're probably gonna put that into the 2023 budget as well. So, you know, I know that it wasn't a great experience because we were down counselors. If you know any kids who want to work, these are great jobs working for the city of Bloomington, and they do pay well, and they are fun and helpful to the community. So by all means, send your kids, grandkids, you know, godchildren, you know, nephews, nieces, whatever. Send them our way, and we'll treat them good. But that's really what happened. And so yes, I think the short answer to that question is yes. We will continue to do what we can to make sure we have the right level of service there.
That's it?
Seriously? You didn't skip any?
Nope.
We sure?
5 after.
Okay.
5 minutes over.
Well, for those of you who want to stick around to answer some questions, I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming tonight. I hope it was helpful. Appreciate it.